Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Around the 412. We are part of allsteelers.com and proudly presented by Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, fantasy, and more. You can follow Crowworthy at Crowworthy on Twitter, and you can visit us at crowworthy.com. You can also check out the Crowworthy Pittsburgh City page for podcasts just like this one, blogs by Smitty and myself, and more. I'm Tyler, and with me as always is Smitty. What's going on, dude? Happy Wednesday.
What is up? What'd you say?
I said happy Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. Happy Wednesday, happy end of the NFL season. I would say that it's like great to get through an NFL season and not have the Patriots win the Super Bowl, but like it felt like they did anyway, right? I mean, Tom Brady and Gronk get another one. It's at this point, you just have to respect it. I mean, there's nothing you can say about it. He goes to a new team, learns a whole new offense in the middle of a pandemic, and wins the Super Bowl. Like what? What? I don't think that people are like fully grasping what we just watched happen. Like the magnitude of how large this is. I
think this kind of has to put an end to the debate of whether it was Belichick, Brady, in New England.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say for the greatest of all time. I was just saying, I think that was over.
That debate was done 2 years ago, whenever he got his 6th Super Bowl. But yeah, it was an incredible season, and Tom Brady winning a 7th Super Bowl. I mean, we talked about it before the season even started. Whenever Hunter was on our show. And he was talking about how he thought Tampa Bay was going to be great, and you and I kind of questioned it. It seemed like too good to be true. And
we're on though, because they didn't win their division though, which is what we said. They
true. That is true.
Yeah.
But I would guess that neither of us probably predicted them to be winning the Super Bowl. But lo and behold, it happened. So yeah, you're right. You got to respect it at this point. And I feel like my dislikeness towards Tom Brady really is gone at this point.
It went out the window along with the GOAT debate. I think it's incredible to watch. I think that if everybody that's still watching it right now, just soak it all in, because we're not going to see anything else like this. I mean, that's the thing is you look back. There's 3. Excuse me, I just threw my wireless mouse there. There's 3 quarterbacks that have won more than one Super Bowl since Tom Brady's won his first. Eli Manning, Big Ben, Peyton Manning. I mean, the run that Tom Brady's been on is ridiculous, and that's why it's people don't get how hard it is to win a Super Bowl. Like when you have a guy like Tom Brady in the league still, like please just go away. I understand he's still under contract next year. After that, please, it's time, Tom. I know he's not going to. He's gonna keep playing until he's like 50, but
I'm still under the. Whenever I say greatest of all time, that doesn't mean I think they're the most skilled of all time.
Right.
It's different. I would think that you could say Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning, they are more skilled than Tom Brady is over their career. However, when you're talking about greatness, that includes the rings, and he's literally won everything and more than anybody else ever has. So I don't think there's any argument whatsoever.
No, again, I think that the debate ended a while ago, but there couldn't have been a more fitting end to such a weird season. I know that we criticized the league throughout it for some things, but the fact that they were able to get through an entire season during a pandemic without they did postpone games, without actually canceling any games.
And finishing on time.
And finishing on time. Yeah, the most importantly. Like we were talking about, they're going to definitely have to push back the playoffs. They're definitely going to have to do it in a bubble. Neither one of those things happened, and the season's over. So they completed what they set out to complete in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to them. I know as Steeler fans with the whole Tennessee thing and then the Ravens game at Thanksgiving, we were kind of freaking out the entire time saying this isn't fair and whatever. But the NFL was able to figure it out for the most part, and they got the season in, and they did it I think better than a lot of people probably would have predicted. There were some COVID scares for some teams. Steelers dealt with that a little bit. But at the end of the day, they got through the season, and that's what matters. We didn't have to prolong the season, which prolonged the playoffs, which we've seen in other sports. So it was all a good thing.
Yeah, I want to turn to, you mentioned with Hunter picking Tampa Bay to win their division. We didn't give Super Bowl predictions on that show, huh?
I don't believe so. I think maybe we did whenever the playoffs started, but we just picked our playoff teams. We didn't actually say who's going to win.
Yeah. And okay, so we want to go through and take a look back at our preseason predictions and go over some of them. As far as the awards go, and I know you and I were pretty similar in this, so I don't know I only got one of these right, by the way.
Same.
Yeah. So we got the same one right, Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
but we'll get there. So let's just go through and talk about who we had winning and then who actually won. So my coach of the year, your coach of the year as well, was Sean McDermott for the Bills, and I don't know where he ended up. Kevin Stefanski won the award, and that was very well deserved. We talked about it. I said, a couple of weeks ago that he would be my pick for coach of the year. If I had one. Obviously I don't have one. But I mean, what he did in Cleveland, turning around that franchise in just one season. And again, you got to throw the fact in there that it was during a pandemic as well. So for a rookie head coach, to just go in there and have to deal with all the elements that Cleveland had to deal with this year. They were one of the teams that dealt with COVID down the stretch as well. He didn't even get to coach in their first playoff game against the Steelers. I mean, everything that happened in Cleveland, and for them to have the season that they did. And unfortunately, unbiased opinion, that's a team on the rise. And I think the Steeler fans need to deal with it. They are a very good team. I think they got it figured out on offense, the way that it's got to operate with, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt leading the way there and letting Baker just, kind of manage it and be very good because they're running the ball so well. It's the defensive side of the ball that they need to improve upon, which I think that, they will, because they can spend that high-end capital on defense now, knowing what they have on offense. So Kevin Stefanski, a very deserving coach of the year. But again, Sean McDermott, had he won the award, I don't think it would come as any surprise. They did knock off New England as we thought that they would for winning that division. They did get to the AFC Championship as well. Andy Reid, said that Sean McDermott should be coach of the year. So, I mean, Sean McDermott was right in that mix. Obviously, he didn't win the award, but I don't think we were too far off in that pick.
Yeah, no, I think both would have been very deserving of the award. I have no problem with Stefanski winning. He did something that I don't think the other Browns coaches have done the past couple of years with Baker on the team, is finding the identity of the team and really sticking to it. Like, they know that they're a run-heavy team, and they're not going to change from that. They're not going to ask Baker to do too much. They're not going to have him go out there and win the game with his arm. They know that they have two great running backs, and that's what they went out and did. Like you said, they have to improve the defense, but they are a good team, and they're going to be a good team for multiple years to come. So congrats to him winning the award, very deserving. But yeah, I had Sean McDermott too, and I think he very well could have the award, and I don't think really many people would have much to gripe about that either. Like you said, they went to the AFC Championship game, and they had a very good season, won the division. That was the first time someone's won the division besides New England since 2008, I believe. So yeah, I mean, it would be hard to argue either way, but both are very deserving.
I see Gareth's in here. He just said, "Hey guys, hey Gareth." For anybody that's watching, listening to the show, whatever it might be, and hopefully it's still going on by the time that most people look at this or listen to this, whatever it might be. Gareth is running a GoFundMe right now for something that's very near and dear to him. And, Gareth has always supported everything that we've done. So if you guys are watching or listening to this, please go check that out. Share it. And if you can, donate. But more than anything, just share it. You never know whose eyes are going to be on it because of you sharing it. So please go and do that for us. But no, yeah, I understand Stefanski win coach of the year. That's an excellent choice as well. But, had Sean McDermott won it, I don't think it would have been egregious. And, again, we're going to talk about the guy winning it that we thought maybe we thought like should have won it, but we'll get to that when we talk about it later on. Offensive rookie of the year I'm curious as to, I don't remember who you had. I know I had Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I just thought the opportunity would be incredible in Kansas City. Obviously, with Williams opting out, I thought CEH would be a 3-down back for them there. I thought that this was not necessarily a lock to have happen, but like I was all aboard the hype train for CEH, as a lot of people were. I mean, this is a guy, for a fantasy standpoint, started to go as like a top 5 running back. Obviously, playing Kansas City's offense, this is going to be the guy. So I was all aboard the Clyde Edwards-Helaire train. Justin Herbert kind of came out of nowhere. I'm not so sure I would have had him in my top 5, just because I really, truly thought he wouldn't play until like halfway through the season at best. I thought they would roll with Tyrod Taylor. A shout out to that team doctor for getting Justin Herbert in there early and letting us see what he could do. Also, Justin Jefferson, who I think you could make a strong argument should have won the award, was the runner-up. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire not even really in the mix for this award. But I mean, hard to go against the selection of Justin Herbert. Although, again, if I had a vote here, I'm probably going with Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, first off, let me say, screw Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because he was a waste of a fantasy pick. Honestly, that guy sucked fantasy-wise this year. I didn't use him like they thought he was going to.
I mean,
yeah, he did. He did. To be fair, he did. But the rest of the season, he was such a disappointment. He was not worth the top 10 pick for me. So that sucked. But my guy, I picked Joe Burrow. I felt like I picked the obvious choice. But I don't think if he didn't get hurt, I think he could have had an argument. But like you said, Justin Herbert, was too good. Just came onto the scene and was killing it right away. So I have no arguments there. It was him or Justin Jefferson. I guess it really depends on whether you like a quarterback or a wide receiver more. I know a lot of guys would have gone with Justin Jefferson, but being the less dependent position that a quarterback is, I feel like it's easier to give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. It's kind of like the same argument as you have with like most valuable player and offensive player of the year. Like offensive player of the year is typically going to go to a running back because they'll never give that position MVP. And we saw that happen again this year. Like I understand that the quarterback position is more valuable, but Justin Jefferson was legit a top 5 player at his position this year as a rookie. Justin Herbert was fantastic, but I don't think he was a top 5 player at his position. Granted, it is the more important position. When you're talking about this, like offensive rookie of the year, I don't think that positional value should come into the mix for voting on it. So I think it should just be the best player, regardless of what position they play on offense. And for me, that was Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. I would have been fine either way. I have no really problems with Justin
No. Again, it's just if I had, again, it's not egregious or anything like that. I just think if I had a vote, I'm leaning Justin Jefferson just because, again, I feel like he was a top 5 player at his position where I don't think that Justin Herbert was.
Yeah, he had an amazing season. And just to look at Joe Burrow, I mean, he had in 10 games before he got hurt, he had 2,600 yards, a little over that, 13 touchdowns, 5 picks. So not a bad rookie season. It sucks that he tore his ACL. But this guy's going to come back. He's going to be better in the future. And this division that the Steelers are in, they got Lamar, Baker, and Joe Burrow. So it's going to be pretty tough for many seasons to come.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun though. I mean, this is what you play the game for. This is why you're a fan of them, you know. But all right, so defensive rookie of the year. Hey, we got something going here now. Chase Young. This was probably the easiest pick of them, though. I mean, Again, even I remember when we were doing the show, it was like, if it's not Chase Young, who's it going to be? Like Isaiah Simmons, who I thought would have a much bigger impact right away in Arizona. But they used him very oddly. I mean, he's a guy that you want to move around on the field. That's how you get the best version of Isaiah Simmons, letting him play all those positions that he's capable of doing. But like, didn't get off to a great start there. And then it seemed like they were like, all right, well, you're heading to the bench. You're playing like 20% of the snaps a game. And that continued for a good portion of the season. I think he finally started to come on later in the year, but this was a guy I thought would be a difference maker game one throughout. You know what though? I will say here, I just saw a comment about Jeremy Chin. I was a huge Jeremy Chin fan coming into the draft, and he did have a fantastic season in Carolina. So I don't know that he got robbed, and I know that your girlfriend's a Panthers fan as well, so I get that part of it. But Jeremy Chin probably finished for me as like a top 3 candidate for defensive rookie of the year, and considering where Carolina got him in the draft, that's pretty insane. But Chase Young, I mean, we talked about it when we did the show and picked him. The reason that we picked him, just an impact player from the first snap he's going to take in the NFL. He'd have been playing in the NFL like 2 years ago and been a dominant force. Just too good of a player.
Yeah, it was definitely the cop-out pick amongst all the picks. But it was the right pick. I mean, this is a guy that I said for going into the draft season last year multiple times, I would have taken him number 1 overall. He was the best prospect in the draft. I still stand by that. So it was an easy pick, and I'm going to mention Washington a little bit early or later in the show when we talk about something. But yeah, Chase Young definitely deserving of that pick.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the show that we want to do is make sure that the people that are commenting stuff, they get their questions answered, regardless of if it has to do with what we're talking about at the time or not. Malik just jumped in here and said, what are your thoughts on Big Ben? I mean, if we don't answer this now, it's going to take a while to probably get to. So we might as well just talk about it now. I know, Beefy, I know where you stand. I mean, you're pretty vocal about it on Twitter.
I'm very vocal about it.
Go ahead.
He should retire. That's where I'm at. He should retire. I think it's best financially for the team. Even though they'll still have to pay like $19.5 million next year in salary cap against the salary cap. It's still saving off that $41 million. I don't really care if they restructure the contract. I would rather rip off the Band-Aid right now.
You're ready to start the rebuild.
Yeah, deal with the quarterback issues, because let me tell you, I hear so many people say you don't want to waste a year of this defense. And you're going to waste a year of the defense no matter what or who is quarterback. He should just retire, and you have the quick step and like the first step into getting that rebuild, finding a new quarterback. It's not really worth just sending him off into the sunset, kind of like Kobe Bryant did, just to have another mediocre year of Ben. I mean, they're not going to win the Super Bowl flat out. I'm sorry to tell you that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I go back and forth with it, and not even from a football standpoint. As I mentioned on a couple shows ago, the only thing I keep going back to is like, how cool would it be to actually be able to be at the game that's going to be his last one? Like, for his last season to be a season played in front of no fans, that just sucks. I mean, for a guy that's given so much to this organization. From a football standpoint, though, I have a hard time disagreeing with you. I mean, you just talked about a couple minutes ago all the talent at the quarterback position in the AFC North. I mean, the Steelers are not in a great spot there. I mean, so why not start the rebuild, as quickly as we can to try to get back up and build up to that level? Because you do have a good defense. So you're going to compete in a lot of games next year. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because, that could affect their draft position a little bit. But, to your point, though, I do agree that I would rather see them just start the rebuild as opposed to just sitting in another year of mediocrity. So,
here's the thing that no one's really talking about is that with Matt Canada as the offensive coordinator, that is not the type of quarterback you want to. Yeah, you don't want to see that type of quarterback in his offense. You're going to want a guy that at least has some mobility to him as well. And hopefully the Steelers can move to that in the future. But I just don't see a way this offense is going to be so much better next year than it was last year, just because Matt Canada's the offensive coordinator instead of the quarterback's coach.
Why does there have to be so much of like a quarterback carousel going on when we got 1 year left to bend? Like, why can't this be happening in 2022 when he's completely off the books?
I know.
Like, you look at, I don't know how much truth there is to Russ being available. I know that Seattle did try to trade him in the past, though. That's undoubtedly happened in 2018. They tried to trade him to Cleveland for the number 1 pick.
They must be on coke or something because they're idiots if they do that.
It was Cleveland that declined the trade. We know Deshaun Watson is looking to get out of Houston. What's going to happen with Dak coming off an injury? Is he going to play in another franchise tag? Or is he going to try to hold out? Like, what's going to happen there in Dallas? There's so much quarterback movement about to happen, and the Steelers really can't be a part of. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen this week. Apparently the Steelers and Ben are meeting this week. When the hell is that happening? We're halfway through the week now, and it hasn't happened. Like, I'm just ready to find out what's going on with him. Again, I have a hard time knocking him for whatever decision he's made because of everything he's given to the organization. And, if he decides to come back, like, I'll accept that. And again, it'd be cool to be at the game, his last home game, and let him ride off into the sunset that way. But if you're looking at it from a pure football standpoint, I'm looking at this as like the year that I would like to accelerate this and start the rebuild. Or, maybe you find that, somehow they get involved in these other, I don't know. We don't have the capital to give up these picks for these guys, considering how many other holes this roster has.
Right.
But how cool would it be if we were in a position to acquire one of these guys?
Oh, it'd be awesome. I listen, I've said multiple times, I would give up a lot for a guy like Deshaun Watson. I would have
31.
Listen, if they said, give me 3 first-round picks, I like people who want to just hoard the picks. I get we have a lot of holes, but if the Texans said that, I'd give them up instantly. It wouldn't even be a question in my mind.
They'd have to have, every draft would have to be as good as the 2020 draft was for the Steelers.
It's true.
Look at it like that. Look at what they did without a first-round pick this year.
Yeah. But just to my final thoughts on Ben, I just think it's a too good of a story. I mean,
okay, here you go. I'll show this comment.
They're meeting Saturday per sources.
We got per sources here from Anthony.
Okay. Well, hopefully Ben announces retirement on Saturday because I just think it's too good to be true. Like, there's no way.
No one in Pittsburgh's going to listen to the show anymore.
Listen, there's no way that they're going to win next year with Ben as quarterback. And I'm not saying that they're going to win with a different quarterback unless it's Russell or Deshaun Watson. That's a different story. But I don't care if it's Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins at quarterback next year for the Steelers because they're going to take them the same distance as Ben probably, either missing the playoffs or 1-and-out or whatever it is. It's just they're not going to win the Super Bowl, so what's the point in him being on the team? It sucks because he's my lifetime quarterback, and it's going to suck to see him go. But I appreciate everything he did for their organization. But it's just time, man.
We're going to have some similar conversations, I feel like, to this when we have very soon when we have a Pens show, I feel like.
Yeah. Also, I did a mock draft today where I got Trey Lance at 24. I did not have to trade up.
Yeah, I've had that a couple. Was it on Pro Football Network or Draft Network?
Draft Network, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, Lance falls to 24 quite a bit on Draft Network. However, Pro Football Network, he's gone at like 8. Yeah. And I was going to ask you that because I asked on Twitter, but I didn't get your answer to this yet. When do you think all 4, like the top 4 guys, are going to be gone by what pick?
I would say by 16. All 4 are gone.
I think you think 5 gone by 6. I think somebody moves up for Mac Jones.
Really? Well, they're idiots.
I think
I mean,
I think Chris Ballard's going to be interested in it, and Indy will see if they pull the trigger on anybody else. I think it seems like a foregone conclusion Carson Wentz is going to end up in Chicago, right? So I think that takes Indy out of him. So I think Indy's going to be looking at the draft, and I think that's a move I could see Chris Ballard doing. I think New England sitting there at 15. They wouldn't even have to move if you're, where we're talking about.
Yeah, well, that's why I said I think so. 16. I thought New England was 16. They're 15. Yeah, that's where I would think the top 4 quarterbacks. That's the last one taken. So if the Steelers were going to take one, they'd have to trade up at least into the top 15, if not higher. But I think
for the top 4, I think you see them gone by 8. And I'm not saying
holy crap.
I'm not saying that the teams in there are going to take a quarterback. Like, I think you could see somebody trading up because I'm not sure what Detroit's thinking right now. Having Jared Goff on the roster, I still don't think that should impact them taking like a Justin Fields should he be there. But it might, and they might trade out of that pick to somebody that would take Justin Fields should he be there.
Okay, gut reaction. So we all know Jacksonville's going to take Trevor Lawrence. Who's going number 2? Do you think? Say the Jets keep the pick, they take a quarterback.
I am right now, and this could change. I am on board with thinking that by the time draft day rolls around, Zach Wilson's going to be in front of Justin Fields.
There we go.
I don't know if I would do it, but I'm saying that's the feeling I'm getting just from a lot of things that I've seen on Twitter, and when you follow the entire draft community the way that I do, and start to get a feel for these things, I could see the Jets go in that direction.
I've done multiple mock drafts, and I feel like the majority of the mock drafts that I've done have Justin Fields going after Zach Wilson, which has been surprising to me because it's like all season it's always been Justin Fields is number 2, and even going into the offseason for college football, he's still been number 2. But I like you said, in the draft community, you get a sense that it's like Zach Wilson to a lot. I feel like the majority of people to this point, or at least a close majority, is like trying to go ahead of. It's going ahead of Justin Fields. So
now here's another thing.
That you said that.
Now here's another thing. I think Atlanta's very interesting at 4. They have Matt Ryan obviously still under contract, but they could be suited to move on from Matt Ryan if not this year, next year. And that's a perfect landing spot for Trey Lance. Like I don't know if he's going to go in front of Justin Fields. Like, again, that's not something I would do, but there's a lot of people that think Lance has a higher ceiling than everybody, but not named Trevor Lawrence in this draft, but he's not going to be able to start year 1. So that would be like the perfect landing spot for him.
So what do you think of the scenario of the Steelers trading up to take a quarterback? Obviously, we've addressed the offensive line should be the major issue. Mm-hmm. But if they decide to go to the quarterback route, they trade up into the top 12 or whatever it is. So how do you feel about that? Trade
value would tell you that all you would have to give up to move up from 24, and when I say all you would have to give up, moving up from 24 to like 12, which is where San Francisco at 12 is another team that could be looking quarterback as well. But doing that would probably cost you next year's first rounder, but like not much else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was able to do on Pro Football Network. I moved up from 24 to 12, just gave up next year's first rounder. And again, when I say all I'm saying there is it's worth it if you feel like that's your franchise quarterback. All you're giving up is one additional first round pick, and that team's moving back 12 spots to do it.
So how would you feel if the Steelers did that? Because I can say if they traded up for one of the top 4, this wouldn't be my first option of the first round. But if they actually did it, I wouldn't hate it. Like I said, you'd be addressing the quarterback option. I think they'd need to. Maybe that'll push Bennett out to retirement quicker. Maybe, I don't know. Hopefully, but I as long as it's the top 4, if they trade up for someone like Kyle Trask or Mac Jones, I will lose my freaking mind. And thank you for putting that comment on the screen right now. Mac Jones is not a first round pick. Thank you. Don't touch him. Steelers, please.
Yeah, I mean, we both agree with Malik here. Mac Jones is not a first round pick. I think the thing is, like, we don't have to worry about Kyle Trask. I don't think that there's a team that's taken him in round 1 at this point. I think not being able to compete in the Senior Bowl definitely hurt him. Mac Jones, a guy that really, I think, kind of had a neutral Senior Bowl, not like going to move up or down. I don't think he moved the needle for himself. But I think that he's going to go somewhere in the mid to late first round, and I just hope it's not the Steelers. To your question, what you asked me originally, would I be okay with the Steelers trading up into that top dozen or whatever it might be if one of those top 4 guys fall out? Well, I should say 3 because we know Lawrence isn't going to. If one of those other 3 quarterbacks in that top 4, if they fall down the board a little bit, again, my preference would be build that offensive line up for whoever's going to be the guy after Ben. But if they were to do it, I would completely get it and I would be fine with it. It wouldn't be my first choice. I would rather have them build that offensive line up first because whoever the quarterback comes in, you don't want them to get killed. We don't need another Joe Burrow situation happening now in Pittsburgh. But I think if they did it, I would be okay with it because whenever that franchise quarterback's sitting on the board, you got to go get him whenever it might be.
Yeah. And let me just say this about Mac Jones. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm saying he's a quarterback. Dad, thank you. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I'm saying that he is a quarterback that I do not think is a first-round quarterback. And specifically, I don't want the Steelers to take. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that try to defend Mac Jones, and rightfully so. He did make some plays this year. And but the biggest thing I see is that, like, okay, he throws his ball, like, on time, on target. That's a good thing of any quarterback. But I'm sorry. It's really easy to do that if your wide receivers are wide open. When you got Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and the rest of that receiving core, it's really not hard to throw the ball accurately to a wide open receiver. So it's not really that impressive to me, or as impressive as it should be, I guess. So that's why I'm not huge on Mac Jones.
Yeah, my thing is everything that he does well, that's great. But the biggest thing with the way that the league is trending is mobility at that position. And he doesn't offer that. He's good in the pocket and everything like that, but he doesn't create out of structure. He's not a mobile guy outside of the pocket. It's just not part of his skill set. I don't see a way that he's going to be successful in the NFL if he's not in the perfect situation. You need to have very good receivers. You need to have a great offensive line. You need to have a good running game. If all the elements around Mac Jones are great, he can be successful. He can be a game manager type, but you don't spend a first-round pick on a game manager. I mean, especially like in the top 15. So Mac Jones to me is a very safe pick, but he's a guy that I don't see having long-term success in the NFL unless he's in the perfect situation. And coming to Pittsburgh right now, with the way the offensive line looks, with the way that the running game looks, that's not a perfect situation. So Pittsburgh would be wise to avoid going that route.
Am I insane for thinking he reminds me of Matt Ryan, where he's good passing-wise, but mobility-wise just isn't there?
Yeah, and I think that you saw who was it on Pat McAfee's show Carson Palmer's brother, Jordan Palmer, who does like the QB Summit. He works with a lot of quarterbacks leading up to the draft and stuff. He said that Jared Goff in 2016 would be the last first overall pick that you at the quarterback position that you see come out that isn't a mobile guy, because that's the way that the league is trending. You're just not going to see it anymore. And so far it's held true, and I think that continues. I see where you're going with the Matt Ryan comp, but it's different for a guy that's been in the league so long now. I mean, you're talking about him coming into like Mac Jones having come into the league now and play the way that the league is trending. It's just he's not going to be set up for success in doing that. And Matt Ryan's a guy that's already established in his role, and I think he's had a pretty solid career in Atlanta. He's a former MVP, got to a Super Bowl. We obviously know what happened in that Super Bowl, but yeah, you're not going to see many guys come out and be successful, I don't think, for a long time that don't have the mobility aspect to their game.
Yeah, the 2017 and 2018 drafts really changed the quarterback position. You got Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, all these guys that are great quarterbacks passing-wise, but also they can run the ball. So, yeah, that's the way the game's trending. And so guys like Kyle Trask, Mac Jones, not worth it.
We need to get back to where we were at the topics, but this question did come in just as well. Where do you see us picking up a running back? Which round in the draft or who in free agency? They're definitely going to add somebody to that running back room. I think it's going to be in the draft, and my answer for where do I think is going to be different from what I would do. I think in an ideal world, we land like Trey Sermon round 4, and I don't think that it's out of the question that he'll be there in round 4. But with what's actually going to happen, I think they use a pick in the first 3 rounds on a running back, and it wouldn't surprise me if they went Najee Harris, honestly. Them and the Dolphins are the 2 teams that have been the most linked to him to this point. They met with him twice at the Senior Bowl. He plays obviously at a powerhouse, Power 5 conference, SEC. I mean, he checks all the boxes for the Steelers. I wouldn't be surprised if they went that route. Again, it's not what I would do. I think that offensive line is not good enough to worry about running back right then. I think that the first round needs to be offensive line. I wouldn't even be opposed to them going offensive line again in the second round. But I think it's more likely that, and also another very good scenario, I will say before I move on from Najee Harris, trade back a couple picks. Even I think that's like the ideal scenario. I don't know if that's possible, but trade back a couple picks, acquire like another third, fourth rounder, and you still get your guy. Another guy I think you look at is like Javonte Williams, who's going to go day 2 at some point. Even Michael Carter, that both the UNC running backs are going to go in rounds 2 and 3. Travis Etienne, he doesn't look like a Steelers running back to me. I really like his skill set, but he's another guy right now with what they have with that offensive line. He would get crushed. I think the best, Najee Harris is probably the best, is the best running back to me. He's RB1, but I think that he might even be able to do a little bit more, like even with a limited offensive line, but it's still, to me, with what he would bring to the table with the way the offensive line is, I don't think it warrants a first round pick.
I agree, and I've been on the same page for the past month and a half that people have been talking about picking Najee Harris. I do like this comparison here by Malik. That's true. I've seen a lot of people say that.
Derek, who I'm a huge fan of, obviously my friend Derek puts up Twitter clips all the time of prospects. He put up a video compilation recently of Najee Harris, and it's insane the similarities between him and Le'Veon.
Yeah, I think that you have to start up front with when you're building an offense, and every offense is up front because you can't get the push off the line. It's not going to work for the running back or the quarterback. So that's the only reservation I have with drafting Najee Harris. If they do it, I'm sure I won't be. The player. Yeah, I won't be like that upset if they do it. I will just have questioned, especially seeing the board. Let's see the board on draft night. If there's guys there that I think they should have taken, like a Cosme or I don't know, any other tackle, Darisaw. Yeah. I would have
gave him to us in his mock draft today.
Yeah, if either of those guys are available, I would question the move. But at the end of the day, if it ends up happening, it is what it is. It's not the worst thing that happens.
Yeah, I agree with you. We'll see how it plays out. Also, I will say I keep talking about like the offensive line. Listen, if there's just a run on tackles before we picked and there's nothing there, don't take a tackle just to take a tackle, because they have so many holes on this roster right now. They need to have the best player available approach. You can't just take a position because it's the position you think you need the most. They got to have the BPA approach.
Yeah. Also, a running back that I've looked at in mock drafts is Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis.
Yeah, and you're looking probably, maybe that's like round 3 at some point. Maybe even slides to like their compensatory pick that they're going to get. I don't know. We'll see. But to get back on track with where we were with our preseason predictions, I know that was years ago that you're talking about. Right. Offensive player of the year, I went with Alvin Kamara here, which was looking good, and then Breeze gets hurt, and Taysom Hill, I know you're going to talk about, filled in admirably. But for Kamara's perspective, it brought his numbers down when that switch was made.
Yeah, I heard it from you when it came to fantasy too.
Yeah,
because it definitely took away. But I agree with you. It definitely changes the way Kamara is utilized when Taysom Hill is the quarterback and not Drew Brees, because Taysom Hill brings a aspect to the game that Drew Brees doesn't. He's mobile, so they don't have to rely on Kamara to do everything. But my pick was Christian McCaffrey, so I don't really know if my pick was any better. I mean, it's actually much worse. This dude gets hurt and is practically injured for 3/4 of the year. So, not to say my pick was bad going into it, but the injury just didn't bode over well.
Yeah, so Derrick Henry ends up winning it. And to get back to we both picked running backs. And like I said beforehand, like this is an award that you expect to be given to a running back because they're never, ever going to be talked about for an MVP award again, probably in the history of the NFL. So they're typically Opoy is going to go to a running back, maybe a receiver. I think Devontae Adams sure had a case this year as well. But Derrick Henry, how could you argue with that? The numbers he put up. So I don't think that our picks were bad. I think that obviously Alvin Kamara was in the conversation, in my opinion, for a long time there, especially down the stretch. Had a 6 touchdown game even against Minnesota on Christmas. And then Christian McCaffrey, obviously we know what he's capable of doing if that injury doesn't happen. So actually multiple injuries. What, he end up playing 3 games this year?
Something like that. And in one of my leagues, used my first overall pick.
Yeah. Coming off how good of a year he had last year, like you knew something was going to happen this year, though.
Yeah, it's crazy. Him and Saquon both hurt for basically the entire year.
Mm-hmm. Defensive Player of the Year. Let's talk about it. We both picked TJ Watt to win this award and came in second in what was the closest voting for an award. I don't know where you're at with this. And again, this is probably something where I'm going to end up being hated in Pittsburgh. But my tweets reflected what I'm going to say anyway, so that was already the case. I don't think that this was like highway robbery that TJ Watt didn't win this award over Aaron Donald. I mean, Aaron Donald had a great year himself, playing in the interior as opposed to the edge. People that are throwing that graphic around, first off, pass deflections and interceptions should absolutely not be on that list because they have nothing to do with the position that those two guys play. Listen, if I had a vote here, again, TJ Watt wins the award, and that's not even biased. I just think he does more, and that's what I said going back to that preseason awards predictions show that we did with Hunter and everything anyway. But I think that it was robbery last year when TJ didn't win the award over Stephon Gilmore, and I think that's why it makes this year hurt so much more because now we're like, what does TJ have to do to win the award? When in reality, he should have been coming off the Defensive Player of the Award last year. And I think that's what makes it so egregious is now 2 years in a row he finishes as the runner-up.
Giving the Defensive Player of the Year award to Aaron Donald is basically like giving Mike Trout the AL MVP in baseball. You can do it every single year.
LeBron?
Yeah, LeBron MVP. You can do it every single year, and it doesn't really matter who he's up against. He would still be justified to win, and he was justified to win the award this year. Like you said, it was not highway robbery. I'm with you 100%. TJ Watt did have the better numbers, but I think a lot of people have to look at the positions that they play. TJ Watt's an outside linebacker versus a defensive tackle for Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald plays the harder position to get these numbers at. He's not supposed to be the guy stacking up on the sacks and the tackles. Really, yes, they rush the quarterback, but defensive tackles first and foremost are there to like stop the run. So realistically, and you have to look at he's getting double and triple teamed sometimes. Pretty much double teamed every single play and occasionally triple teamed. They'll have a running back trying to cover him with the two offensive linemen. So I have no issue with Aaron Donald winning this award. He's probably deserving every single year. Like you said, last year I think was the bigger grievance towards TJ Watt not winning. Both the guys were very deserving of the award. I think it could have gone either way. And like you, I probably would have given it to TJ. Maybe there is a little bit of bias there, but I don't really think it's that big of a deal that Aaron Donald won it.
I'm assuming you see Stubbs' comment here on the
Yeah,
board.
I saw it. I just chose to keep talking and ignore it. I mean, just because we said we trade TJ Watt for Deshaun Watson,
there's
want him
like
trade.
two players in the NFL that I would trade TJ Watt for, and they're both quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's just I find a hard argument against Aaron Donald. Like everybody wants to bring up the graphic that you're talking about. I have it up on my screen right here, where it's the red and green of the stats. And yeah, if you're just looking at those flat out numbers, then sure, TJ Watt wins it by a mile. But you have to look at the position and what they're going through each play. It's completely different for both those guys. It's kind of like it's kind of like when you bring up the GOAT argument for or comparing positions like LeBron and Michael. Like they were different positions, so it's really tough to compare. Or football argument: Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu. They're different positions, so they're going to put up different numbers. Both are amazing, though. Same scenario here. Both are amazing. Both were deserving. So I can't really say that TJ Watt got snubbed this year.
Yeah, to answer Malik's question here, well, one, I don't think Bud's back in Pittsburgh, unfortunately. But I think that bodes better for him to showcase the player that he actually is. We're going to find out if he's capable of doing it now, if he's, the edge rusher that everybody's paying attention to. Obviously, playing opposite of TJ, that's where the attention's mainly going to go, and Bud's able to be the player that he is. I think Bud is a great player on his own, but now we're going to find out. Tennessee, highly rumored to be a destination for him. Vegas with the Raiders, highly rumored to be a destination for him. Wherever he goes, he's now going to be the premier pass rusher on that team. We're going to find out a lot about him. And to Hunter's point, when he was on here originally, when we were doing the award predictions, that's why he picked Aaron Donald to win the award over TJ, is because all the talent on Pittsburgh's front, it's kind of hard to just isolate TJ because of all the talent that's there. And I get that too. It's like, TJ's numbers are going to be inflated because of the rest of that defensive line. Everybody's eating. If you look at Aaron Donald, that front's okay, but it's nothing like Pittsburgh's front. And to answer Malik's question, wherever Bud goes, it's not going to be like Pittsburgh's front where he is playing on. So we're going to find out a lot about Bud Dupree, the player that he is outside of Pittsburgh when he inevitably signs somewhere else.
I got to say, it really sounded weird whenever you said Vegas, because I was like, wait, there's a football team in Vegas, and I realized it's the Raiders. I just noticed that sounded weird. I think Devin Bush wins comeback player of the year next year.
So this year it was tough, but next year you're going to have Dak coming back, Saquon coming back, Nick Bosa coming back, Christian McCaffrey only played 3 games. Like, it's going to be crazy next year too with the guys that are coming back. Obviously, Bud, Devin Bush. I mean, there's going to be a ton of guys coming off, season long or pretty close to season long injuries. So it's going to be crazy competition next year. For a middle linebacker, when we talked about, I feel like Dak Prescott has to be the front runner, being that he plays quarterback and is going to be looking for a new contract as well. I don't know where he's going to be. I'm curious to see what the odds look like before the season opens up.
Yeah, I feel like it's easier for an offensive guy to win that award than it is for a defensive guy. I mean, maybe that's just
I forgot about Joe.
Maybe that's just me thinking that you can look at offensive numbers easier than defensive numbers and be like, wow, this guy had a really good comeback year. But yeah, I think it would be probably one of the quarterbacks or running backs we're talking about.
Anthony said, what's more important to take first in the draft, inside linebacker or tight end? I wonder, is this specifically for the Steelers or just positional value in general? Because if I'm I would love to see the Steelers, and again, I know that there's a ton of holes. I would love to see the Steelers address tight end for once, instead of trying to throw a dart in rounds 5 or 6 on a guy like Zach Gentry and hoping it somehow works out. For Steelers. Behind Eric Ebron, there's nothing there. And Eric Ebron's not the long-term answer. He's not the solution for this team. I don't know if he's even the solution next year for them. The way that the season ended, I'm not very high on Eric Ebron. So, and there's nothing behind him. There's no depth there. So they have to add a tight end, whether it be in the draft or free agency for cheap. I don't know what they're going to do. But man, imagine, and this isn't going to happen, but I'll bring it up just for parody. Imagine if a guy like Kyle Pitts falls to 24. Do you pull the trigger on that?
Oh, that's really hard to not take him. I mean, if you're looking at that pick is best position or best player available, it's really hard not to take Kyle Pitts if he's there.
I know that he's a tight end and not a receiver, but
he's basically a receiver. I mean, let's be real.
I mean, he's, to me, is the number 1 pass catcher in this draft.
Yeah, for sure.
Above Jamar Chase, above Devontae Smith.
Dude, just throw the ball to him. He's going to come down with it. If you watch his Florida highlights from this senior year, it's insane. So, yeah, I would take him at 24. I mean, if Kyle Pitts is there and Cosme or Darisaw is there, who are you taking?
It's Pitts. If Pitts is there at 24, I don't give a shit who the other players are.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really argue with you. He's an amazing player, and he's just much more than just what you think of a tight end. Like if you go back and watch his tape, he is basically a receiver, a big receiver playing tight end.
And he also, the comment I'm showing right now would probably be a situation where they go offensive line in the first round, and then Pat falls to round 2 at pick 55, and they maybe address tight end at that point. But to answer your question, I think for the Steelers, I would like to see them go tight end before addressing inside linebacker. I'm comfortable enough with Devin Bush and Vince Williams, and then obviously Spillane and a guy like Ulysses Gilbert, maybe, the depth that they have there, assuming all 4 of those guys are back. But even there, I mean, you look at Tampa Bay, what they have with Devin White, and we assume Levante David will be back as well, a pending free agent. That's what everybody is going to be trying to emulate at the second level of defense. So, I mean, it's all about speed, sideline to sideline. That's what we saw the Steelers missing in Devin Bush. But imagine adding another guy like him opposite, and that's why you're seeing people mock them linebackers all of a sudden. Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. What's the guy? Why am I forgetting his name all of a sudden? From Alabama. He wears number 32. I literally just did a mock draft where I picked him. Dylan Moses. I don't know why his name was. Where he could go in maybe the second round. He's dropped off a little bit. I'm not against them adding inside linebacker early. But for me personally, I just finally want to see them address the tight end position.
And let's be real, it's the Steelers, so they definitely take a linebacker over a tight
Baron
end.
Browning, the Ohio State University.
All right.
Reminds me of Jimmy Graham back in the day. I was just say, hopefully that's not Seattle, Green Bay, or Chicago Jimmy Graham.
All right. So next position, are we done besides comeback player of the year?
Yeah, we're down to comeback player of the year and MVP.
Oh, that's true. Which one do you want to do first?
Comeback player of the year.
All right. So I wrote down two. I wrote down Ben and then I put /Cam. But I was looking at either of those guys, and neither of those guys lived up to the hype. Obviously, Alex Smith won the award, and the fact that Ben got one vote to me was it was stupid. I know it should have been unanimous that Alex Smith, this guy was potentially going to lose a leg, and he was able to come back and play football.
Yeah, people were making like a huge deal out. I get it. It would be funny if that person's name got leaked to like the one person was, but like, first off, I think that no one was operating under the assumption that Alex Smith was going to play this year. Like, had I known he was going to play even one snap, he would have been my comeback player of the year prediction.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show like not every year is going to have a guy like Alex Smith coming back from that. Like, when we look at next year, it's like, talking about the favorites like Dak Prescott and stuff. You're not going to have a guy that like almost died coming back to play in football games like Alex Smith. By the way, just retire. Like, what is he trying to do now? I mean, like he proved that he could come back from this. Cool. Awesome story. There's going to be a movie made about you. We'll see you later. But when I picked Ben as comeback player of the year, it was under the assumption that like Alex Smith isn't coming back. He's not going to play football. And he's not going to get votes for this award without actually playing a snap. Once he played games and actually led Washington to a division championship, I mean, the story was written there. We knew he was winning the award.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's still, I mean, I find it funny that one person picked Ben. Like, I wonder why they picked him over Alex Smith. But
I mean, that's the question. Is it comeback player of the year just because they actually just simply came back? Like Alex Smith, or did they have to come back and actually play decent?
Yeah, Ben played decent for like 3/4 of the year.
I know. Well, that last quarter of the season, I mean, it was pretty much like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't making those eye-popping plays where he was throwing the football 30 yards.
Yeah, except add in bad play calling, bad offensive line, and Ben couldn't throw the ball accurately either. So.
Yeah. Well, I was including the bad offensive line in that. That was insane. That's the worst performance I've ever seen from an offensive line in that Super Bowl.
It was terrible. Did you see the stat that Mahomes ran like almost 500 yards before he either threw the ball or got sacked? Yeah, he ran 497 yards before he released the ball or got sacked.
Oh man, that's brutal. That is bad. Okay, so MVP.
Yeah, we both had Wilson. There was a little controversy. So whenever I originally wrote this, I wrote down Mahomes and then I scratched it out and I wrote Wilson because I thought about it. But it doesn't matter because Aaron Rodgers won.
We both picked Rodgers. You know what's funny, though? If you go back and listen to that show, the way I was talking about the Packers, you would think that I would have ended up picking Rodgers. I don't know if you remember the conversation, but like you guys were going Vikings for the NFC North. And I was like, listen, Rodgers is going to have a great year simply because they drafted Jordan Love.
Right.
I mean, look at what happened in Green Bay. Ridiculous year. You could argue he had his best year at the age of 37. But I didn't end up picking Aaron Rodgers. I went with Russ Wilson, and that pick was actually looking pretty good for 5 or 6 games. And then he literally just pulled a Plaxico burst and shot himself in the foot. Started playing terrible, despite his offensive line play. I know it wasn't great, but it's the same offensive line that he was doing well with. Obviously, great pass catchers there in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Decent run game with Chris Carson, Carlos Hyde, and company. I don't know what happened there, but he went from MVP to a guy that is basically the reason that they were one and done in the playoffs. Because they completely turned around. Like their defense started playing better. They were terrible. They started playing well, and the offense started playing terrible. Yeah,
it was disappointing to see him go from that MVP caliber to just falling off midseason, and they just continued the rest of the way, couldn't pick back up. But I agree with you. Rodgers had an amazing year, and I feel like does this make it tougher on Green Bay to move on so easily from Rodgers? Because a lot of people thought maybe this was his last year in Green Bay, and then comes out and has an MVP year. They go to the NFC Championship, lose again. But what do you think is going to happen there? I feel like you can't move on from Rodgers.
No, he's going to be in Green Bay this year. I'm curious to see what happens after this year. Here's the way I'm looking at it. From Green Bay's standpoint, the organization, their best course of action at this point is to let Rodgers play until he doesn't look like the MVP of this league. Let him play in Green Bay. I wouldn't move on from him. From his standpoint, if he's knowing that Green Bay is going to move on soon enough, and this is why Adam Schefter said maybe you do see Aaron Rodgers move this offseason, it would be him forcing his way out. You're seeing these other quarterbacks use their power, use their voice, and do similar things. If he's looking at it like they're going to move on from me anyway, why not try to pick my destination? Like he's a California guy. You see San Fran could potentially be looking for a quarterback. Why not try to force your hand and get to San Francisco while they need a quarterback, as opposed to they could go out and get Deshaun Watson, and then that's not an opportunity for you anymore next offseason. Mm-hmm. So I can see that mindset where it's the only way that he's moving out of Green Bay right now is if it's by his choice, trying to jump the gun and get somewhere before the team moves him. From Green Bay's standpoint, though, they would be absolutely foolish to trade him right now.
Yeah, I saw so many things after they lost in the NFC Championship. Okay, where's Rodgers going to end up? Or the highest odds of Rodgers could end up on this team. And none of them were the Packers. I'm like, how are you people that dumb that to see that they're going to want to keep the MVP?
Yeah. I don't see a situation where he's not in Green Bay next year.
I don't either.
You're going to see a lot of quarterback movement, but I don't think he's part of it.
Yep, staying put.
Okay, so what else did we have? That was kind of it for the awards.
Biggest surprises and biggest letdowns of the NFL season. I picked one team for each.
Okay, well, you can go ahead.
All right, so my biggest surprise of the season, and it wasn't that much of a surprise because they still weren't an amazing team, but I picked the Washington football team. I thought they were a lot better than I thought they were going to be, especially with how I thought that division was going to play out with now Dak getting injured, that changes things, but they weren't playing well with Dak and quarterback for the Cowboys anyway. So them winning that division and actually making the playoffs, even with it being 7-9, is still impressive to me. And I think that team has a lot going for it moving into the future. They beat the Steelers, and we saw in that game, they're a pretty decent team, and they have the foundations to make big a good team. So that was my surprise. And then my letdown team is the 49ers. They went from going to the Super Bowl, and then they were 6-10. And I get it. They were injury bugged all year, but still 6-10 from a defending NFC champion. That's very surprising to me. I had them. I don't know if I had them winning division. I think they had them just going into.
We picked Seattle, both of us.
Yeah. So it's surprising to me that they were that bad, even though they did have the injuries they did.
I think that's the easy pick, right? And I knew that you were going to say that. So my letdown, I was going a different route because I knew that you were going to go with that one. I went with Minnesota because I had them as a wild card team. They didn't even come in second place in that division behind me.
I had them winning the division.
Yeah. They came in third place at 7-9 behind the Packers and Bears. Another direction that I thought of, one of my other playoff teams that looking back, I have no idea why I had them in the playoffs to begin with. I had Denver making the playoffs this year as a wild card in that seventh spot that expanded playoffs. So that would be considered a letdown as well. Obviously, finishing last in that division at 5-11, they have a top 10 pick this year. I think they have the 9th overall pick. So that's obviously a huge letdown as well. From a surprising standpoint, in a good way, I'm going, unfortunately, with the Cleveland Browns. I mean, I think that they're set up there now for long-term success. You found out that you finally got a good coach. I think that Baker showed that he can be the quarterback of the future for that team, given how good that run game is and the weapons around him. I think the only question mark for them is, do they move on from Odell Beckham Jr.? Because you saw a different team with and without him. And so do they move on?
Better without him.
Yeah.
I mean, which is crazy to think about, that you have a guy like Odell, you think he'd be better with him, but they performed better when he wasn't on the field.
So I think that they have to answer that question. Is Odell part of the future there? And, shore up a couple pieces on the back end of that defense. And they got a really good team in Cleveland. And, as a Pittsburgh fan, I hate it. But also, I've talked about it on here before. Like, I was so young when like Cleveland was good, and that was actually like a legit rivalry when we saw Renegade born. I wouldn't mind seeing that come back, and I think that we saw like the early roots to it this year. Hopefully, the Steelers are good, quickly because Cleveland's gonna be, and for this rivalry.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that my basically my entire life, I mean our entire lives, Cleveland's been terrible, except for we were like, I don't know, very, very young. And my uncle is a Cleveland fan. He's from Ohio. And basically my entire life, I've been a Steeler fan. And obviously I want the Steelers to beat the Browns, but I never really hated the Browns because my uncle liked them. And it's probably just because the Steelers dominated the Browns so much that when the Browns weren't playing the Steelers, I kind of wanted them to win just so my uncle would be happy. But now it's better football, like Malik is saying. And it actually makes it a good rivalry when Cleveland is good. And it makes me actually dislike them and not want them to win. So I've never really had that aspect in my life before. So I'm happy that they're good. I mean, happy and upset a little bit for both.
Yeah. And I think, too, the thing is, we always talk about, like, when you talk about the AFC North, for the longest time, it's just been the Steelers and Ravens. We saw a little bit of the Bengals, obviously, when they, made the playoffs and we beat them and stuff. They had a couple playoff appearances with Andy Dalton, whatever. But for the main part, it's just been the Steelers and Ravens in that smash mouth AFC North style football. Like, to have a third team like the Ravens come in now, and even Cincinnati in the right direction, getting their guy in Joe Burrow. Hopefully, they can find a way to protect him. And also they need some pieces on the defense as well. But the AFC North is trending in the right direction, and it's going to be fun to watch for a long time. So I'm excited about it from that standpoint.
And I'll be honest, you might as well just, like I said, rip off of the Band-Aid, be the bottom of the division or near the bottom of the division.
Here we go.
And just start fresh.
Yeah, here's the thing. So, like, the last thing that we kind of wanted to touch on is just like a look at the Steelers offseason a little bit, right? And but it's hard to take a look at that without the first domino falling. And that first domino was finding out what's going on with Ben. So where do you even begin to talk about this team's offseason right now?
I think you look at it as, okay, Ben's coming back. Sucks. And then you just go from there.
You're of that mindset. You think it's for sure that he's coming back?
I think he's coming back. I think they'll figure it out. If I know Ben as a quarterback, that I just don't think he's going to go out the way that he did. I think he's going to want to try to come back and play better and have a better season. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. It's not going to work the way you think it is. So just retire. But going from that, I think, yeah, he's coming back.
What about Pouncey?
I don't know, because we saw that thing that basically said he was retired, but then it turns out that wasn't true, or at least it was just rumored.
If he actually retires this offseason, it's going to be hilarious either way. Either he's going to retire for a third time on social media, or he's not going to retire, and all those tweets where everybody was like saying thank you for everything. Even we put up that picture where it's just like an awesome picture and everything like that. We got like 2,000 likes on it. It's going to be irrelevant because he's still going to play next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that I think if Ben comes back, I think he comes back because they wanted to go out together. So if Ben's going to come back for one more year, I think he will too. But it's just weird because I don't really know what to say on Pouncey because is he retired or is he not? Because like we saw it with the I don't know if it's the first or second time he retired, quote unquote, that what's his name? Who retired last year from the Steelers guard, Ramon Foster. He said, okay, I'm going to tell you right now, a decision has not been made on that. I'm like, okay, well, where are the people getting this information then?
I don't know. I remember Dale Lawley, who's with DK, it was like the first one to put out about him likely retiring. And I don't know if it was miswording, misinterpreted, whatever it was, but I guess that was just based off of like his conversation with Ben on the sideline and like more so not even what was actually being spoken, but just like body language.
Yeah.
So I think people were just reading into that. Now, the second time is what I'm curious about because I have no idea where that would have come from.
No clue. I mean, fingers crossed. Sorry, Steeler Nation. I hope they're both gone. I'm just the villain in this part right now.
No, listen, I think it's a little bit of a different scenario with Pouncey. I mean, we've seen the regression over the last couple of years, and it's not just like with the Castro, we hope that's just due to injury and he's back to the same guy next year. But like in Pouncey's case, he hasn't been good for a couple seasons. The snaps were a massive issue in 2019. Ben was able to mask some of it for 2020, but you looked at that wild card game and it reared its ugly head again to start that. So,
Yep.
yeah, I want at the same time, like if they're not going to address center, I don't want to see J.C. Hassenauer play center. I would rather have Pouncey back for one last season than that happen. But I would also rather have him retire and them address that position.
Also, speaking of that first play in the wild card game where the snap went over Ben's head and James Conner tried to jump on it, Cleveland stored. It was refreshing to see Tom Brady go on a snap, a quarterback being able to jump on the ball.
I recently I saw that highlight again today. Literally, I woke up to that highlight being played on Sports Center. It sucked. I can't remember what it was, but it was just like images of the 2020 season or something like that. And it looked like Ben just assumed that Connor was going to fall on it. And I don't know if like Connor thought the same thing about Ben, but yeah, they both just kind of like stood there for a second.
Well, dude, my mom, it was so funny. My mom was in the basement freaking out. Like, why did Ben, like she was mad at Ben for just standing there or like looking like he usually wasn't really putting in effort. Kind of like Cam Newton in the Super Bowl.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. So we need those dominoes to fall for anything else to happen. And I'm very excited. I don't know if we've mentioned this yet or whatever, but it can be assumed based off last year that we are going to do another like mock draft, both just Steelers related at some point. But before doing that, we're going to do like just a post NFL season mock draft with some of our friends.
First round.
Very in tune. Huh?
First round. We're not doing 7 rounds.
First round. Yeah, I'm sorry. I should have said that. Just the first round. Tyler's already called dibs on the Jaguars, so we'll see what direction he goes. Last year, I remember when you had decided to be Cincinnati, you just threw the whole thing into chaos.
Yeah,
by not Burrow number 1. So
listen, I know we wanted to go like the realistic route, but realistically, if I was picking that pick, that's who I would have taken.
I'm curious to see where Cincinnati would be this year had they done that, and where Washington would have been last year with it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, can you say Joe Burrow won them many games? I feel like he kind of got them close. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't have been that different, but either way,
he's the reason they had so many close losses. But
That's
they still
true.
lost most of those. How many games they lose by one possession? Like 4 or 5. I mean, it was something crazy. Like against the spread, they were ridiculous this year.
Yeah, I don't.
And Phil Burrow's
I think one of my favorite games I saw of him, even though they lost, was I don't know if they were playing the Ravens, and it was the final score was like 38-34 or something like that.
Oh, yeah. They even had a chance at the end, I believe.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's he threw the ball like 60 times.
So like to kind of wrap this up as we look at the Steelers offseason, I mentioned, I know that there's varying opinions on this and everything like that. How many like needs do you see this team and like pressing needs? Like they need to address this in the draft. I would say free agency, but I don't really know what they're going to be able to do in free agency. So how many holes do you think this team has that need addressed immediately for 2021?
Can I say, do you want me to say O-line as one or all 3 positions on the O-line?
No, just O-line. Yeah.
Okay. So O-line is number 1. Okay. And then after that, I'd probably look at honestly just corner for the depth. I think that you have to look at Joe Hayden possibly not being back, and Steven Nelson is going to be on the last year of his contract, so you got to look at replacing those corners. After that, I think there's not really many pressing needs. Like it's a lot of depth issues. I feel like after that, because I think you could address the depth at defensive line or tight end, like we mentioned, or I like our linebackers, but I could see them drafting another linebacker. So there's multiple positions, but I think like, obviously offensive line number 1, and then corner for me would be number 2, and obviously running back. I feel like a lot of people are going to say that.
I was about to ask you if you were going to say running back.
That's lower down on the position needs for me, because unless you address the offensive line, I don't care which running back you take. It's still going to be an issue up front. So I would rather address the big guys first.
Yeah. For me, the thing is, like I said, there's varying opinions on this. There's people that think that they don't need much, and I keep saying how many holes I think this team has. And to your point, a lot of those things are depth things, because I think you look at like even edge rusher, losing Bud Dupree. I think Alex Highsmith is capable of starting, but like, what are we going to have behind him? Mm-hmm. I think you look at middle linebacker, like Vince Williams could be a cap casualty. I said I'd be comfortable if he is starting next to Devin Bush, but who knows if that's to be possible from a financial standpoint. The cornerbacks, Hayden could be a cap casualty as well. We don't know about that, but hopefully, if that's the case, you're seeing Cam Sutton and Mike Hilton both come back. Like, if you lose both those guys after next year, there's not gonna, like, who's your corners?
Mm-hmm.
You have nothing on the roster right now. I mentioned tight end. There's nothing behind Ebron. We know about the running back situation. Is there a number one running back on the roster right now? I don't think so. I think even like Malik's mentioning safety, and I see his comment after. So, but see, you obviously like that's a position where you play three safeties a lot anyway, and we are using Cam Sutton in that role right now. But say he moves on, yeah, I think that you could, and I'm just using this example because we are also fans of Pitt, but a DeMar Hamlin type player as a third safety, a guy that can kind of play in the slot as well, or has the ability to play single high safety. So I think that there's a ton of routes the Steelers could go. And again, that's why I'm not just locking into one position in round 1 at pick 24. I'm just going best player available at pretty much any of their needs.
Yeah. Let me address offensive line though. If I'm ranking the 3 positions, I would say tackle, center, guard.
Listen, I think that like for one season, and you, like I said, you hope and pray that the Castro is back to form next year. Assuming that that's the case, you have good guards in him and Dotson. Those are your guys for at least 1 year, and then you might have to look for somebody else to replace the Castro who will be on the last year of his deal next year. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like Chooks and Banner, I don't know that either of them are really the answer at tackle. And then you look at center, and it's like. Pouncey, we were just talking about him. We both feel like it's time to move on from him for everything that he's done for the Steelers, as great of a center as he's been for a long time. He just hasn't been that same guy the last couple of years, and there's nothing behind him at that position. So unless Kevin Dotson's going to learn how to snap the ball and be center, then that would make the other guard spot your priority. But right now, I'm in agreement with you as far as how I would rank them.
Mm-hmm. And whenever it comes to safety, I saw in the mock draft you did, you got Paris Ford at like the 6th round or something.
He's going so late now. I don't know what's happened to his. I understand, with him.
Listen, if he's there, I'll take him.
Yeah,
I like Paris Ford. Give me Diddy Bob.
I'm curious about where because I see him go anywhere from like round 3 to round 6, and I'm like, this guy has one of the widest ranges of draft value I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see where he goes, and I mean, obviously, like I said, as Pitt fans, we're going to follow that closely because that's a guy that I think, being that they use, I know it was a little bit different this year with COVID and everything like that, but like the Steelers have familiarity with these Pitt guys, and we've seen them take guys in the past from Pitt. They have, obviously, like I said, the familiarity with using the same facilities and stuff. So with having such a weird off season, and we expect that to be the case for a lot of this year as well, those homegrown guys that you already have a good look at, they're going to be in play for you. So, already having – it's kind of like an advanced way of scouting guys, if you will. The fact they already have their eyes on. I forgot about this question. I put up the comment, and then I didn't even address it. Is Patrick Peterson worth it depending on what the price is? Patrick Peterson's definitely a guy that's at the tail end of his career, I feel like. But here's the thing. I still feel like I don't think he can be a number 1 anymore. If he is your number 1, I don't think that your cornerbacks are that great. But as like a number 2, I think he can still play. I just think that he has to give up a little bit more ground than he used to have to. I don't think he's that same lockdown guy. He just doesn't have the speed anymore. That's what happens. That's why, they talk about that 30 years old for corners is typically that age where they start to fall off. That's why it's amazing to see Joe Hayden play at such a high level still. Patrick Peterson is a great guy, would be a great player, I think, to play opposite of somebody else as a number 2, but I don't think he'd come in here and be the number 1 corner.
Yeah, and you got to wonder what he's looking for in the market, because if we're going to be getting rid of Hayden as a cap casualty, what's a guy like Patrick Peterson is going to want? So yeah, I think it would just come down to price. I personally don't see it happening. I think that if they're going to address corner, it'd be someone cheaper or in the draft.
So this is assuming that the Cardinals move on from him then, releasing him, not trying to trade him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because I didn't know if – so I guess I didn't know if the question meant price – as in money or asking price from the Cardinals in terms of a trade.
I took it as price as money. But if it's a trade,
listen, pal, they've got a whole lot of money to go around. So
they already said they were moving on. Well,
but I didn't know if that meant exploring trades or we're releasing him. But when you say something like that, you're kind of handicapping yourself to the idea of hey, how many trade partners are going to come calling if we know that we're just going to release them anyway? If we can't find a trade partner.
Yeah, I
never
think
know why teams do that.
Yeah, I think that if it was a trade, I just wouldn't really be interested. I'd rather just keep the draft capital and address issues in the draft. And if it was a signing, it would just come down to price, but just don't see it happening either way.
Yeah. Man, there was a lot of interaction on the show.
Yeah, it was nice. And it was funny because we were answering questions what probably would have taken like 10, 15 minutes to go through our preseason award predictions took like 30, 40, 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's all good though. Like I said, anytime that people are in here and interacting, it's fun, and I don't mind altering the topic list on the show to accommodate that. So, but I think that's about it. Unless you got anything else, or unless we see something else here.
No, I think that the good thing is I think I was in higher than 1 frame per second this time, so we're all good on that end.
It looked good on my end. I don't know how it looked for them over there, but on Periscope and on YouTube. But
awesome. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out, everybody. It was great. Hopefully we get more of you guys in here. Keep asking us questions. We love answering them.
Yeah, like I said, so if you guys, whether you're watching or listening, taking a look ahead, I would say within the next couple of weeks, you're going to see us do a mock draft for the entire first round. All teams. Again, it's probably going to be us and like 4 other people, so we each have our list of teams and just do the whole first round. We're undecided whether we're going to do – so last year what we did, for anybody that's been a fan of ours for over a year, we did an initial one where we all knew our picks ahead of time. And then I think it was like a day or two before the actual draft, we did something called Mock Draft Mania, where we had 90 seconds in between picks and we didn't know our picks beforehand. So –
and that's where I screwed everything up.
Yeah. And I'll open it up to you guys. If you guys have a preference for what you would like to see, because those guys were all like, oh, we don't care. We'll do either one. They were both fun, whatever it might be. So if you guys have a preference for how you would like to see it run, also what we're going to do, like I said, at some point we're going to do a full 7-round mock draft when we for sure know the comp picks the Steelers have. That would be just for the Steelers. We're not going to go through 7 rounds for every NFL team. Just our Steelers 7-round mock drafts. And then the day of the draft, I think we're going to try to put together a draft special show, like a watch along that you guys can join in on, maybe try to get some guests on. I've already talked to a person or two that's been on this show before about potentially doing that. That's all I'll say about it. So that could be really cool. Again, if it's something you guys would be interested in, let us know, because you guys are the reason that we keep doing this and what keeps us going. So, but I gotta show this one. No, I appreciate it, man. Anthony here, Big Steeler Mood, he actually does have his own show. I feel like, Anthony, maybe you can answer this for me real quick. I don't know if you were on like a little bit of a hiatus for a while or what, but if you weren't, I didn't see your show for a while, but I saw that you just recently put one out. So everybody go check out his page, go check out his podcast. It's just a different type of, it's completely different from what we do. I feel like there's just like a different vibe to it, but it's pretty cool. So make sure you guys go check that out. Actually, I want to wait for his answer because I want to know if he went on a hiatus because I didn't see anything for a while. The only reason I wake up in the morning, you guys are too good to us, man. We appreciate it.
I wish this was the only reason I woke up in the morning.
The holiday season was killing me at work. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, for us here, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'll pull you guys in for a little bit. There are definitely weeks where I'm like, man, I don't even know if I want to record a show. There's not really much to talk about. How are we gonna? I'll show this too. I don't know how we're gonna get like content from a show, all this stuff. But it's like, man, when I see comments like the ones that I pulled up on here and stuff, and the reactions that we get on Twitter, anytime that we do anything, you guys are what keeps us going. So anytime I get down, I think of you guys and just want to keep pushing. And I put out that tweet today, man. Hopefully we can continue to make strides with this thing and really turn it into much more than where it's at now. I mean, we've already taken huge strides in 3 years, but.
I mean, look in the past year from where we were a year from now.
Yeah, we're coming up on next month's a whole year since COVID hit. So
yeah,
or not COVID hit, but shut down everything.
Right. And that's whenever we were like, okay, how are we going to get content? And we actually ended up having like 11 out of 12 shows with guests on every week. Yeah. The shows that were supposed to be like our worst ended up being our best. True.
But yeah, so for anybody watching, listening, thanks again for listening. Make sure you go check out Big Sports Mood on Spotify. Is it just on Spotify? Is it really not on? any other platforms. I don't know. But either way, check out Big Sports Move. Just search it. You'll find it regardless. Keats Barbershop, as you can see scrolling across there, is one of our sponsors. It's an old-fashioned barbershop. It's located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. He's open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 10 to 4 on Saturday. Every Tuesday, he does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. Again, that's Keats Barbershop at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Also, Bench Clears. Yes, benchclears.com. It's very simple. It's a tank, but in an NHL jersey form. So it's a tank style, but it's an NHL jersey. So obviously Pittsburgh Penguins, they got 5 different styles or so. We always talk about it, but the away one is the absolute best. It's so clean, that white jersey.
There's a pair of shorts actually.
Yeah. The shorts too. But essentially, man, if you're a summer concert guy, I mean, what better outfit to wear to a summer concert? Everybody talks about how it's the basic outfit for a summer concert is the basketball jersey. Well, now it can look like you're wearing a basketball jersey, but instead you're repping the Pens in the 4-1-2. So
hopefully they're in the playoffs during that time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Benchclears.com. Use the word Crowworthy, all one word, CROWWORTHY. You'll get 20% off your order by doing so. Oh, there's 5 more comments. Google Podcasts. iTunes won't ever upload it. Oh.
You can also go to Crowworthy and go to their merch store. Pick up one of these bad boys, this hoodie right here.
Yes, and also shout out to – so our merch is great, obviously, through Crowworthy. We got the hoodies. We got the T-shirts, the long-sleeve tees. There's a beanie on there as well. But shout out to our guy, DC4L Custom Tees. You guys are all familiar with him. He made some sweatpants for us. He also just recently put out some socks that he sent me as well. So those are sick. So go check out those as well because they match perfectly with the hoodies. Also, a big shout-out. Jacob's in here. He said, Steel City Champ, shout you guys out. I'm glad he did because I wouldn't have found this. There you go. Yeah, he's got 20,000 fans or something like that, or followers on Instagram. So, I'm sure a lot of people have found us through him, but shout out to him. He's awesome. Fire. But other than that, thanks for listening to Around the 412. This has been a presentation of Crowworthy, where winners are serving winners coast to coast with sports, gambling, fantasy, and more. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Around the 412. Follow them at Crowworthy. Visit the Pittsburgh City page at crowworthy.com for podcasts like this one, blogs. Go check out Tyler's latest piece on Jim Rutherford's time in Pittsburgh. We got a new GM now, but go check out a piece about our old GM and much more. Until next time, we'll see you then.